Alright guys, welcome back to another Aagaard Moto Foundry instructional video. We've been getting a lot of requests on the older XB fuel pumps. And if you had a XB that was made in 2003 or early 2004, you will have a pump that looks like this. And we're just going to quickly go through how to disassemble and to put it back together. There are some slight differences from the later style, and so we'll run through this early style. So start out with a screwdriver. I've already removed the C-clips or E-clips from the top of the rail here, and so if you use a little screwdriver and you get underneath, there's two of them here, and we just wanted to run through. They're here and here. Then make a cut with a sharp knife. Here, do not remove this clamp here. And also cut down here on the pre-bent rubber hose. Now there's Oeticker clamps here, and what we find is a really good way to remove those is to take a good pair of side cutters and then get underneath the Oeticker clamp here where the band is. So get up underneath the band and just pry away at the band. And you can do that up here and down here. Get the clamp out of the way. Make your cuts here and up here. And then once you have these clamps off, or the E-clips off, and you've cut your hoses away, then your regulator housing will come off as such. I'm going to set that aside. And then once this is cut and your clips are off, then your whole assembly will slide right out. Disconnect your wires and your low fuel sensor, and then go ahead and take your whole assembly off of the rail. So this is commonly what we refer to as the chassis right here. Keep these clips in place. Clean this area here. See, there's some little debris, and then take your old O-rings off. So this area will be all clean. These O-rings will be removed. If you're buying our Aagaard Moto Foundry kit, which we certainly appreciate, then everything you see will come in the kit and you will be good to go. So we will walk through the next steps here. You can remove your filter. If you're ever questioning, there's printed directional lines on our filters, but you can always double check there's an in, and the in wants to be on top. So you just make sure that the flow is this way. It goes out towards the pump. So we can remove this, and you can do so sometimes. I did not rehearse this, so they can be a bit of a bear. But you can also try to remove the pump first. And then the pressure on the filter will be relieved, and you can press the filter out by hand, just like that. Okay. Filter side looks a little different. Pump side's round. Filter side has that little indent there. Okay. So none of this will be reused. So next up, we will take our clips off of our regulator housing, remove the regulator from the regulator housing, regulator housing, and we do suggest that you get a new low fuel sensor. This one has a little clamp on it. Again, cut the clamp as I just indicated, take that off, and then your low fuel sensor will slide out. It can need a little bit of, it's a snug fit. And again, you can take the, you can make the decision to get a new one of these or not. We recommend doing it. It's been in there a long time, in bad gas probably. So get a new one of these. Your choice, though. We give you the choice in the website. So then we're going to gently pry up on these. We're going to remove the regulator from the regulator housing. We're going to clean everything and put it back together. All right, next up, folks, there's 3 O-rings. I've removed them already, but most importantly is this little plastic sleeve from your old pump. Before you toss your old pump, make sure to take this split collar sleeve off. It sits right down in there. Just carefully take it off because you'll need this, okay? There is another way to do this if you lose this little collar, and you basically have a cut piece of sleeve that fills this entire area, and then this regulator housing sits on top of there in these old style. But we provide the 3 O-rings, so make sure to save your little spacer. All right, so next up we want to get our regulator out of our regulator housing because we get a new one of these. So very gently take a pair of pliers and just act on this little area here and go around in a circle. This is the hardest one to get to. Slowly work that off. Don't pry too hard. Take your time. Don't want to break these. So we got 3 of them up, and we're just going to work real careful to get this one off. And do not break this pre-bent wire form. All right. We're getting there. We got this little guy here. There we go. All right. So this comes off. What's holding the pressure is these little raised areas here in the cover. Okay, and then we get the old regulator out. This one has been in there for a little bit. And then we're going to clean this area. We're going to clean this area. And as you see it here, you can keep everything intact as it is, so that when we reassemble everything, it goes together nicely. All right, so we have the fuel pump completely broken down. This is all you're going to have left after you remove all the old parts. So we have the fuel pump chassis itself, and we have the fuel pressure regulator housing, and the in their last section there we removed the actual regulator. So there's that, and you've got the pump and filter holder, and then you have the lockdown ring that seals the regulator in the regulator housing. We also have the little spacer that we took off the pump that fits right in that area here, right on the pump. And then you have your 2 C-clips. Now, if these look worn, definitely replace these. If you order the kit from us, then just give us a shout and we'll put a couple new ones in there for you. Then what you get from our kit when you order from us is everything's brand new. There's a few things missing in this photo. We include a couple O-rings for the large pump body here, which we'll detail later, but you will get everything you need to rebuild this fuel pump completely. So let's focus right now on one of the most important parts that is most often done wrong by people assembling these pumps. So this is placing the regulator into the regulator housing. What usually happens is this is forced in, and this little O-ring here is damaged. So we're going to talk about that. But get yourself some motor oil, and you can put it in a little cap here like we have here, and you can take these O-rings off of the regulator. Put a little bit of the motor oil on there. Same with this, the large one. Don't disturb these spacers. Each one of these regulators that we send you in our kits are pressure tested, so we know that they are flowing properly. So you can put that back on there. Then on the housing itself, clean this really good before you get going. Okay, this does normally turn on this model. So clean it up really good, and then put a little bit of this motor oil. You don't need a ton, but a little bit goes a long way. So we got that. We're gonna dry our hands a little bit. So there is a little bit of a tolerance in these O-rings, so, and temperature dependent, depending on what you got going on. You can try to center your regulator into the regulator housing. Put your fingers right here and press. Now, if it does not go in right away, you can take it, turn it 90 degrees, and then if you get that solid snap in there without applying too much pressure, you will just know that you've got the regulator seated correctly, and it will make that positive sound. If you're pressing on it, if it's turning sideways, what you can do is take the small O-ring and put it into the bore of the regulator housing, and that will help you guide it in there. But if you have any doubt at all and you're pressing more than just a little bit, then you need to take it apart and try again, basically. So we've got that seated in there. Now we need to put the lock ring back on. If you look at your tabs, and any of these tabs are really bent far out, then you can straighten these with a pair of pliers, and then they will go on and engage a little bit better when they're put on. We didn't do too much to get these off, so and then center. This is specific only for the old style. The newer style are completely different. Then make sure to inspect around. This should be sealed pretty tightly to the base of the regulator housing. So just go ahead and put your lock ring on, then line these up, and then we're going to go ahead and start working around the edges. Okay, I got two of them, the third one, and then that fourth one is hanging a little bit, and this is what I was talking about here. Can you see right here where the tang is just not completely down on the edge there? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a pair of pliers very gently, take that, and ever so slightly we're just going to give that a little bit. And it was probably kind of hard to see it on the camera, but it made a very nice engagement sound onto that tab. So I can press those down. I'm going to go around all the edges there. Same thing here. All right, now get a pretty good engagement. If you want to, you can widen your pliers a little bit, and you can do 2 at once, but don't overdo it because you break these tabs and this thing's done. So I just got this one to engage a little bit more. I'm going to do the same here. Really gently though, guys. Doesn't need much. But when you take them off, you're going to spread them. So it's good to give yourself a little insurance. There we go. Now, take a look here. And you've got, these are sticking up. And you've got very nice engagement on there. And the pressure regulator is installed in the regulator housing. All right, next up, we're going to take our fuel pump, our new fuel pump. Don't recommend reusing these. And we're going to prepare the top of this. Here is your collar. It is a split collar, as we showed when we took it off. That can be pushed over the top. And then we take a little bit of motor oil so we can put these 3 O-rings, and that comes out of this package. All right, and then slip them over the split collar, and it ends up looking like that. All right. Okay, next up we're going to take the short section of hose provided in our kit, and we are going to take 2 of the larger Oeticker clamps. You'll have 2 of these in your kit with this short rubber hose. So put 2 of them on like this, but we're only going to clamp 1 down right now. So in the store you'll see a link to these Oeticker pliers. So we're going to clamp this one first. Just like that. Got the other one loose at this point. We're just going to leave that there for now. We're going to install the pump. There's this little round section directly across from the pump output. You've got your filter side and your pump side. So we're going to put this in the opening. This round section is going to go right in the opening. You're going to put it about halfway down. And then we are going to take the pump. We are going to slide it down. And this is going to just kind of give us an idea of where our filter sock is going to go. So you can judge it by, you have the top of the pump, bottom of the pump on the drain, and you just kind of want the filter sock to come off somewhere in this area here. So there's, of course, this opening here, and we can position it so the filter sock can kind of come off. You can do it basically straight off the bottom. I just kind of like to have it come off at this angle right here. So we'll go ahead and open the filter, the pre-filter. There's only a short throw here on these, so don't try to like expect the thing to completely seat. It just goes on. Okay, just like that. So we can put our pump assembly on. Slide it down as such. It's going to float above here a little bit, so that's not a concern. So basically when we get the pump inside, it's going to, we're going to tuck this into the tank before we put it in. You can press that down, This part can bottom out here. And then next up, we're going to take the regulator housing, keeping this clamp on here. We're going to slide this loose Oeticker clamp up here. And then we're going to take, you got another loose Oeticker clamp on here. This is how it comes from the kit. This one is applied by us. And you have a loose one here, which we'll explain in a minute. Make sure that that says in on the filter. So we're going to put that through. Gonna get this in here, seated. All right, so we're going to deal with this in a minute here. So take a little motor oil. Put them on these areas here. Now our regulator housing can go on. Keep that up there. So the on the clips here, the wire form, you have the rails go in these two areas here. So just line them up. Start it on the pump first, and then we can just slowly work that down. Just like that. So we got this here. Now, what you're seeing here in this area is this has not joined up completely yet. So we want to make sure we get the clips over the rails. Okay. Just like that. That clip up there, and then this distance here can be taken up with the pump going down. Can you see how high the pump is in the bracket here? So we're going to bring the pump down, and we're going to bring the hose down with it, the regulator housing at the same time. Just like that. See how much that took up? Right there. And then we're going to work the pump down a little bit more. So as it sits, we're a little bit shy still here. So we want to push the pump down. Okay. And that'll give us a little bit more room here. And what's happening here is we're just slowly working the pump down with the regulator housing, and until they line up good and they look good on the rails and everything looks even. This whole design has a tendency to pitch the regulator housing off this way if you're not careful. So we want to just make sure that we get the pump down as far as we can here, so that the regulator housing is level. That's pretty close right there, but we're going to work it down just a little bit more. Yep. So now what has happened is we have the pump down far enough that everything is even, and we can take up this gap a little bit more. So this is the hardest part really of this whole pump assembly. When this just came down right here, this is a little bit crooked, so we can take a screwdriver here. Be very careful here with this. We're just going to pry this level again. Probably not going to happen when you do it. So now that our pre-filter screen here is more even, and everything's looking good and lined up, and we're down in the base pretty good. So we are going to move on to the next step. So this is what this looks like here. Everything is looking pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and clamp this down next, our loose Oeticker clamp, and then we're gonna need a heat gun for this next step. And we're going to attach this hose to this 5/16 connection right here. So we will do that next. Okay, so also don't forget to finish your clamp here. You can see how nice and even that is. There's no gaps there, and it's taken up the hose is basically fitted on the nipple well there of the filter. So we're going to clamp that down. Make sure that when you do this, you're not cutting into the hose here. Hope everyone can see that. Make sure there's a gap there so you don't cause yourself some problem there. Okay. And then we can go ahead next and we can put our E-clips on here on the rail itself. So when you look at the pump, it's nice and level and even. We'll hook these up and we'll run over to the heat gun next. This is already crimped. We're going to make this connection here. Okay, so next up we're going to take our hose here, and this is how it comes from the kit. This is already tightened, this one is loose. So this just needs to be pressed onto here, but a little heat oftentimes helps that get on there, but you don't want to go too crazy with the heat. So try to set your heat gun somewhere in the, lower range. We've got this one on 3. All right, so just make sure that it's seated there. It's got to have enough room for this to clamp on here. And so then slide your clamp down, just like so. And then we're going to take our clamp, our Oeticker clamp pliers. Now try to clamp it in this position here. Otherwise, it may hang off too far and interfere with you installing the pump into the tank. Again, we're going to just start it. Then we're going to make sure it's centered correctly. And then we're going to make sure we're not cutting our hose when we clamp this. Be good if I get this in the camera there. All right, so see the gap there, and we can tighten it down. So we got our clamp down there. All right, so that's how that hose should look, just like that. No kinks. Oeticker clamp is up, so it won't come over into the range that we're gonna install it in. And we will hook up the rest of the pump next. All right, well, we're moving right along here. If I didn't make note, we have our clips in, both sides, they're seated well. So we need to hook up the pump itself. If you look down on the top of the pump, there is a marking for positive and negative. The negative has a smaller terminal. So the larger terminal is the positive side. That goes on as such and has a gray wire. The negative side has a smaller terminal, goes on as such, and that is the brown and yellow wire. All right, and then if you left your low fuel sensor on there and you're going to reuse it, which some people do, some people don't want to go back in here, so they opt to get a new one from us. So this is this connector here. The low fuel sensor goes in here. So if you're going to do a new one, goes in here as such. It is a bit of a snug fit. And actually you may find that this needs to be opened up a little bit. So in this case here, it looks like this one is a little bit too tight. So we're going to go ahead, grab a pliers. Carefully now, if this breaks, we're in for a little bit of trouble. All right, this one is giving me a little bit of a hard time, so just use your pliers, open up really gently to the point where you can get this in there. This one is still pretty snug, but we have the low fuel sensor in there. We provide a new clamp for you. So put the new clamp on. Then we need our Oeticker pliers, which we will get. All right, so we have our Oeticker pliers, and we just need to clamp that down. So now that will hold this into position. It's held in by the crimp on the low fuel sensor and your Oeticker clamp here. Moving around is fine as long as you can't slide that up. Then we're going to connect this. Very good. And then we provide, in these older style pumps, there's no rail for these the wires to be secured to. So we provide you with a zip tie. We'll zip tie this all up together. And then all you have to do is install your pump body O-rings. And then we provide you with a new drain plug O-ring labeled. And then the fuel line banjo, there's a large and a small, and the large one goes on first here, and the small one goes on second here. And then your pump will be ready to be installed. Once you secure all your wires, take a look, make sure everything looks good, which this one does, and you will be on the road. Also, don't forget to add your wire loom protection. You can run all through wires through this provided nylon loom that we give you. And if you stick your finger halfway through it, it'll open the cavity. Do one wire at a time. And then just zip tie it right to the top of here where the wires come out of the top. Zip tie the wire loom right there. So the finished product on the wiring with the wiring loom is all three wires minus the ground. Ground stays here. Goes through, and then the first zip tie is here, and then we just loop the low fuel sensor away from any rubs, and then we capture the top part of it there with another fuel safe zip tie.